has covered the Tennessee Vols for quite some time. GoVols247.com is where you can find him, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Wes, how long have you covered Tennessee now?
Let's see. This would be my 21st year, I believe, more or less. So yeah, all but a couple years since 2000. I've been covering this program, seen lots of good things, and recently a lot of not so good things. So been around. I'm the oldest 38-year-old you will probably ever meet.
I was going to say you started when you were like 14, then, right? If I'm doing the math right, something.
Yeah,
along
17.
Those lines.
Close enough, though. Close enough. If you want to make me 35 instead of 38, I will happily take it. And honestly, I bet my wife would too.
I can understand that. So when you look at this Tennessee team, there's so much that's different, lots of new faces on the coaching staff, on this roster. Is there reason for optimism?
You know, I think that depends on kind of what you view as success. You know, in the short term, I think people need to be realistic about this. Tennessee lost a whole lot of players in the portal. Tennessee was a 3-7 team last year. Of course, the SEC-only schedule, yada, yada. But I think that there are reasons if you want to feel like things could get better. You know, I think the way Josh Heupel's teams have always played offense is pretty exciting. You know, when he got to Missouri as offensive coordinator, the year before that, they were 100-something, 120th or something in offense, and then they were like 13th the first year he got there. So his teams usually put points on the board, and they play an exciting brand of football. Now, will that translate to what Tennessee's current situation is now? I don't know. But they have brought in some interesting players from the portal. I think they could actually be surprisingly pretty good offensively. So I think there's reasons to feel optimism. Now, does that mean they're going to be competing with the top teams in the SEC this season? I don't buy that yet, not at all. But I think that, you know, can they get this thing sorted out? Sure, it's possible.
You said surprisingly they might be good offensively. What leads you to believe that? Is that personnel-based or scheme-based or coaching-based or some combination of the three?
It's a little bit of a combination. You know, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think if they can get good play or solid play out of the quarterback spot, I think everything else is okay. You know, I mean, people know they lost Eric Gray and Ty Chandler, but I think they've got three pretty darn good running backs. They brought in a JUCO, Tyon Evans, who I think is really good. So I think they're okay there. I really like that wide receiver core. I think they can roll 5, 6, 7, 8 deep there with some pretty good players. A little thin at tight end, but the players they have are okay. Up front offensively, other than, you know, they lost Wanye Morris, Trey Smith, but they still got some players there. I think they're okay. To me, the whole thing offensively hinges on, can they get good play out of the quarterback spot? They got a couple talented guys, but that hasn't always meant anything. You know, Jared Garantano was the number one dual threat quarterback prospect in the country when he came out. So that doesn't always translate. So I can tell you all day long that Joe Milton is physically a freak, because he is. I mean, the kid's 6'5", 250, can throw the ball like Jamarcus Russell could, like 70, 80 yards, can run really well. It looks kind of like a Cam Newton-sized quarterback out there. Looks like a DN with an arm, but he can move. There's a lot to like about him. But it didn't work out for him at Michigan. Will a different offense that fits him better be that much better at Tennessee? You know, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Hendon Hooker was a starter at Virginia Tech and was a pretty good player. But, you know, he wasn't always good there. So he went for a new place, came to Tennessee. I think he's been pretty consistent so far. But if he's the guy, you know, can he be better than he was? Can he be the best version of what he was at Va Tech? I don't know, maybe. And then Harrison Bailey was a former 5-star quarterback prospect who is – maybe doesn't have a huge arm, not a great athlete, but he's a really smart kid. He has a pretty accurate arm. They've got some ability there, but they have to be good there, because the way college football is played now, I mean, you got to put points on the board. The days of picking a quarterback because he makes fewer mistakes than the other guy, those are long gone. You got to put points on the board. You got to push it. So if they're good at quarterback or okay at quarterback, I think they're pretty good offensively. If not, I have no idea.
So if I hand you a $100 bill and said you have to bet on one of these three guys being the starter on opening day against Bowling Green, who are you picking?
I'd pick Joe Milton III. Honestly, I would. I think that he's, as I just mentioned, I mean, physically, you can go all around college football. And I'm talking here pure physical ability. So how that translates to 11 on 11, the skills you have to have there, the handle under pressure, the intangibles, that's a different argument. But if you're talking about pure physical talent to play the quarterback position, Joe Milton III's up there with anybody. I mean,
we're
I was
talking
blown
bigger
away.
than Josh Allen in Buffalo, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking. He really is 6'5", like 248, and can run like his top speed's like 21, 22 miles an hour or something like that. I mean, he's a freak of an athlete. But at Michigan, that Harbaugh offense didn't really suit him. He got a torn thumb. He got 2 torn thumb ligaments last year that really set him back, and he wasn't the same after that. So I don't know that he's ever been able to play in a college offense that really was kind of built for the skills that he has. I think this one is. So he's been, publicly Heupel continues to say there's no separation, coach speak, yada, yada. But behind the scenes, I keep hearing more about Milton than anybody else.
All right, so I'm going to hand you a highlighter and a schedule, Tennessee schedule this year, and you've got to highlight 3 games that you think are, whatever cliche you want to use, swing games, or the difference in being 8-4 and 5-7. Math doesn't work. You get what I'm saying. 3 games that are the difference in this being a good season and not so good.
That's a good question. I would probably, off the top of my head, I would go with Pittsburgh in week 2.
Okay.
I think that's a game that if Tennessee can win, I think Tennessee has a chance to be a bowl team and do some things. I'd put that game there, and then I'd probably put maybe Missouri and Kentucky there. You could also argue Ole Miss. I'm not really sure defensively if those guys are how much better they'll be. But those would be the 3 or 4 games I would circle probably off the top of my head. Now, I'm not looking at the schedule in front of me, so I could be missing one. But those would be the 3 or 4 games you gave me a highlighter and said these are going to kind of make or break your first season. I would say those 3 or 4 games. And I would also underline, circle, and put 4 exclamation marks after do not lose to Vanderbilt. If you're a Tennessee coach and you lose to Vanderbilt, things get hot in a hurry. So don't lose that one. Win that game for sure. Yeah.
I hear
Historically,
you.
When you lose to Vanderbilt. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I was looking at the schedule, and you hit 2 of the 3, and then you kind of mentioned the other one. Pittsburgh feels like it's huge in week 2. That game at Missouri feels like one. If you're going to have a good season, you need to win. And then I had Ole Miss as the other one. Maybe that's for other reasons, though. What's it going to feel like in Neyland when Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss roll in? And it's the first time that Ole Miss has played there in a really long time because of this stupid scheduling model we've got in the league.
Yeah, it's funny because when you try to put things in perspective here, everything has been a circus for like 14 years now, 13 years. So it's sort of like living – you're like a traveling carnival exhibit. Like everywhere you go, it's just crazy. No matter who's been brought in to coach Tennessee, they're still winning in all the other sports and doing pretty well. Not so good in football. And so that's interesting. And Lane Kiffin – that was one of the original circus shows. I mean, it's like there have been 5 or 6 since then, but man, that was a fun one. I'll tell you that year, and I've said this to Lane Kiffin's face, the year that he and Bruce Pearl were both at Tennessee, I think I probably slept about 3 hours per night. That was a really, really interesting year because, Lane has grown up a little bit since then. I think he'd be the first to tell you that. He's still Lane, but he's a little older now, a little wiser. Back then, when he and Pearl were running the circus, oh man, that was a year. And the way that it ended, I think you've had Monty Kiffin come out and say several times, we never should have left there. I think if Lane Kiffin had to do it all over again, he would have stayed. He never would have left. He certainly found a soft landing spot now in Oxford. He's got people loving him again. He feels good, but it was a rough few years there after he left Knoxville. I think he regretted that. So. But since then they've had other guys to hate. So I don't really know exactly. There are some Tennessee fans who in hindsight have been like, God, that was just fun with Lane Kiffin. It was crazy, but it was fun. So there will be a lot of boos, but I think there'll be a lot of people who are booing because other people are booing, not because that's actually what they feel like. Because I believed and have for a long time that Lane is not quite as hated around here as you think. He's still hated. Don't get me wrong. But, there are a lot of people here who are like, man, that was kind of fun.
Hey, 30 seconds left. Complete subject change because I know you follow Tennessee baseball. Such a fun year for that team. Obviously didn't end exactly the way they wanted it to. Is the momentum going to continue? And I guess I mean more with fans more than anything else with Tennessee baseball?
I think it will. Now, year to year, will they be like an Omaha team every year? I don't know. But I've said for years, for anyone who will listen, the Tennessee baseball job is a sleeping giant. If you do that, there are enough prospects in this state and in this area. This area loves baseball. You have to give them a reason. And I think Tony Vitello is starting to give them a reason now. I think they're going to make a better stadium there. I think they're going to enhance the environment there. And as long as he stays, I think they're going to be relevant. So, yeah, I mean, to answer your question shortly, I think that, I think they're going to be a pretty solid team from here on out, at least as long as he's there.
Yeah. A lot of good insight there, Wes. Really appreciate your time this afternoon. Always good to catch up.
Anytime, guys. Y'all know that.